We are live. It always takes me a minute to say that to make sure we're actually live, and we are. Sam, thank you for joining me on my little talk show. First of all, tell us who you are and what you do, please.
Honored to be here, Lucy. Honored to be here. Also, for everyone watching, before Lucy hit Let's Go Live, she said, just letting you in on some behind the scenes action.
Sam.
Lucy said, all right, let's hit live and then we can continue our yapping. So you're all in for a treat today.
Yap session.
My name is Sam Flynn. I'm COO and co-founder of a legal tech company called Josef. Josef is an enterprise workflow automation platform. That's a lot of words. Pretty much just means you can automate processes, focusing specifically on in-house legal and compliance teams. So we work with the likes of L'Oreal, Bumble, many other corporates in that space, and they automate three buckets. There's 3 buckets of tools they build on the platform. So workflows, think about actions like a legal front door and intake tool, documents. I assume we're going to be talking about that today. Generating common documents for the business, and answers. So that's where like a Q&A tool where they can answer repetitive questions.
Okay, fantastic.
That's what we do.
It's a perfect description because it also reminds us and hones us in on, we're talking about in-house legal departments, which is my sweet spot for sure. And then automating any kind of workflows, I think it's super cool. I think what you're doing is probably taking us to the next step of, I'm going to go back to like a tried and true best practice in the day when I was in house, like FAQs. Hey, we need FAQs. Do we have FAQs? Let's build FAQs. Let's post FAQs. Nobody reads FAQs. Nobody reads them. So tell us why and what your tool does, and how do you make FAQs actually go live? I mean, you still need somebody who can write out some set of FAQs, but the good news is I think you're making it actually like usable, right? So let's talk about FAQs. I mean, I feel like in-house team, that's the first place we're like, God, I'm sick of answering the same question over and over again. I need an FAQ. So,
absolutely.
What do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the low-hanging fruits that we can start with, right? And there's so much low-hanging fruit, so much greenfields opportunity when we talk about workflow automation for the in-house department. Even the most sophisticated, like I just had lunch in Midtown. I live in New York with general counsel at a big insurance company. And he was talking about all this like sci-fi stuff they were doing, trying to like automate really complex like debt restructuring documentation. Cool. But he's like, there's still all the like boring low level stuff that I spend my day doing, and my juniors particularly spend their day doing, that we're not focusing on. So I'm a low hanging fruit kind of guy. FAQs is a really good place to start for anyone who wants to dip their toe. Our research shows that particularly junior to mid-level in-house counsel spend up to 30% of their day answering those same questions over and over again. Classic example. Yeah. Who can sign this? Delegations of authority, signature authority. Like you gave this knowing look then, Lucy. Yep. I feel like everyone's done this, right? Even in a company like Josef, right? Like that's something that comes up. So what we've done with a number of our customers is we feed their FAQs, their policies, or even their signature matrices in this instance into our Q&A module, Josef Q. We can then launch that safely to the rest of the business so that it can answer those questions at scale automatically. So imagine you've got 50,000 employees who are all buying things or selling things or engaging services, third-party services providers. They can then go to that tool, figure out who needs to sign it, and then kickstart workflows to go and generate that documentation or do whatever. But I think that's a really good starting point.
So I'm going to lead the witness here a little bit because automation sounds amazing. To answer, but how many companies actually have an answer for who should sign this? Like they can hand you a beautiful little matrix, a perfect little Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I'm gonna lead the witness.
Please lead the witness.
How many have this?
So
are they ready for you?
I think everyone has a version.
Okay.
I've never met a single company that has a complete version.
Right.
You've successfully led the witness, and what I think there's two things going on, right? The good news for everyone is all that time that we spend as lawyers, as compliance officers on building out this kind of documentation is valuable. Large language models in particular are really good at reading the kind of content that we're really good at producing. The clearer, the more beautifully formatted, the more beautifully presented, the better. Like LLMs actually care about that kind of stuff, right? The stuff that we care about, LLMs also care about because they've been trained on these kinds of articles across the internet. So that's the good news. The bad news is no one has a complete set of knowledge resources that they need in order to automate everything on day one. But it depends on the organization and the culture. But there are ways that you can deploy this technology to help you find those gaps. So one thing we have seen, including with the delegations of authority use case, going back to that, is in our phased deployment, we will find, okay, this set of companies doesn't have any good documentation. You're going on the back burner and you need to spend some time in timeout creating the comprehensive documentation. The good part is that we can find that out through the testing. Or we can say, and this happened just last week, this particular corporate group has great documentation, but doesn't have the names of the individuals who can sign, which makes it less helpful.
Titles, maybe, right? Like a title.
Right, exactly. So it'll say, the finance director can sign this kind of things, but maybe they want to go one step further. And so I think on the one hand, you're absolutely right. We need to make sure this documentation is right. There's no way these tools are going to work if we don't have the documentation complete. But I do also think we can use technology to help us find the gaps and then go back and fill it in.
I love this. I'm gonna dig in a little bit deeper because we want to make this really pragmatic and practical for those who are listening. So two things. One thing you mentioned I want to get back to, because you said through the implementation planning, right? You kind of break down the what comes first and what that. So we're going to talk about implementation in a second, because that we see as a big moat between the buyers and the tech providers. So I love hearing any focus on implementation planning. Amazing. Check. We'll get to that in one sec. You then mentioned the last part where you said they don't have the name. And I find that such an interesting example of a very, very nuanced tactical problem that can completely break the experience, where in-house teams or buyers are like, well, the tool did an ABC, do the thing. How do you want the tool to figure out that Bob left and Bob's no longer there and Bob's title actually also changed and the new guy has a new title or the new gal, all of that. So, so tell us a little bit about and I see this all the time, especially with the big corporates, right? They're trying to use their Active Directory and how do you match titles to names? I mean, how does that get done from a technical perspective? I just love to help prepare your prospective customers for this. What should they be doing, even if they have a good sense of the function that should be signing something in Ireland? What do they do next?
How do they practically do it? So there are different ways of tackling the same problem.
Okay.
Boring start to the answer, but I'll get practical. So on the one hand, you have there's a scale, let's say. So on one end of the scale, you have full deep integration with an Active Directory or your single sign-on, so that the tool you can do a number of different things with that, right? So one, you could determine access control that is directly related to the person who is accessing it.
Yep.
Only an individual at this level, in this group, in this geography, is seeing the relevant policies and FAQs and matrices for that individual. That's one way you can use that.
Sure.
The other way you can use it is in exactly the way you just described, by matching the names, and particularly the current name, to the relevant role for the delegation of authority, but also in other situations as well. And so pushing and pulling, a push-pull integration, so a two-way integration with those systems to make sure that the tools are deeply integrated within your existing systems.
Yeah.
That is the gold standard. But that doesn't mean you need to set all of that up to get value. And I think this is really critical. And this is where that implementation planning comes in as well.
I was going to lead you right there.
Yeah, you already know what you want to get out of me.
We didn't plan this.
We didn't at all.
We don't do any planning. That's magic.
That's not our style at all.
No.
I mean, I proposed to you on a whim. Not 5 days ago.
My heart still flutters. My heart still flutters when I think about it.
So the implementation planning, I think, is really critical to lead people to the gold standard, because so many people start there, they'll over-engineer a solution or use case to the point where they've got everything working, everything deeply integrated. They then hit launch and they've realized some assumption that we've made along the way wasn't quite right. The team's not ready, blah, blah, blah. There's a million things that can go wrong. And so with a phased implementation model, which is the one that I favor, we take it step by step. And at each point we have triggers or thresholds that we hit that tell us moving into the next phase, move into the next phase. Let's keep investing in this, or let's stop, reconsider, reflect, and potentially pivot, or even shut it down. That's a fine answer as well. So an example here might be, I'm going to keep using the signature authority example. Why not?
It's so common. It's such a great example. It's common to everybody.
And so deeply related to the CLM problem as well. So
for sure.
You don't have to, with this tool, immediately launch it to the business. There is likely going to be a procurement team, a global business services team who currently have to look up that information, or at least confirm that information when the documentation is coming through to them. You can build a tool that can be used internally, like a quick answers tool, to help those people get access to that information more efficiently, more securely, and more effectively as well, at a higher accuracy rate. They can use that internally for month 1, month 2, even month 3. And over that time, you can be making sure that it's operating at the level that we want it to be operating at before we move on to phase 2 or phase 3, which might be deploying it to procurement and then deploying it to more teams until finally you've got 100,000 people who have access to the tool globally. In that phase deployment model, you're giving yourself the opportunity to get the most value with the least amount of effort. And you're making sure that you're proving value along the way, which is important, not just to know you're on the right path, but also to show your stakeholders, so that we didn't just spend a year. We didn't just spend a year building a tool that's going to be perfect with no value. We actually spent 2 weeks building a prototype that's going to get you value at week 2, and then so on and so forth, all the way to our gold standard. That's a very long-winded answer, but that's how I think about these kinds of.
But that's the right answer. That is the right answer. I mean, people 100% phased implementation. We talk about it all the time, and we hate the big bang dream. Like that, it maybe you'll get there, but that's. The big bang is not the implementation approach. Hopefully it's the outcome, and hopefully, at the end you're like, oh, it's happened. We got here, but it's a journey. And what I like, again, everything you're saying, the implementation, the other thing it does that I think that you're articulating, and I'm going to just take another stab at it, is it's change management, right? These kind of iterative successes are so beneficial for change management because people are watching the wins. They want to be a part of it, right? They're seeing it. It's real. It isn't these big promises of things that then you kind of hope, happen. So I love everything about it. So it sounds like at Josef, at your company, you guys really do take a bit of a white glove or hand-holding approach. And again, I'm leading the witness here because, and I hope the answer is yes. The reality is tech for a long time has really stayed away from that, right? They've really tried to, we're a SaaS company, no humans on the P&L, the investors don't want to see it. And I think there's been a bit of a reckoning or realization that's like, no, if you're trying to sell to legal professionals technology, there's a moat that needs to be crossed. And I think it requires this hands-on support model. I don't know what you call it. I've heard the steel thread, like where you're, from marketing through sales. Have you heard this?
Oh, no, I haven't. I like it.
I like this too. I picked up on this one. It says we focus on, there's customer success. And again, very traditional SaaS model. And, sales and marketing that gets handed off to implementation, that gets handed off to customer success. The steel thread is probably a human that's actually assigned from the sales cycle through implementation and manages the customer success. Yeah, steel thread. I heard that from another.
I love it. I think we might do part of that by accident, but
that's right. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're like, people, certain. I'm going to say the better tech companies are piecing that together, and they're realizing that that's your way to a sticky, longer term relationship and success with customers, or else you're going to just fall into this bucket of, oh, legal hates this. Oh, we hate that tool. Like this. There's a dissatisfaction vibe.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, look, I couldn't agree more. I think It's been very interesting. I've been in this space for 10 years next month in the
Oh,
world of legal
what were
technology.
you, 4 when you started? What are you talking about? I mean, I was only 7.
She flatters me. I got good lighting over here. No, the way that we've thought about SaaS and software in that period has changed a lot, and it's exactly what you described. So early days, all of our advisors, we went through like a Y Combinator equivalent in Australia, where I'm originally from. All the advice was like, it has to be, it has to be product-led growth, no white glove service. They have to be able to pick it up and start building on it straight away. And that was our vision for a long time. And I think it is still something that distinguishes us, like ease of use. We have a beautiful academy that people can access very easily to teach themselves. And particularly in the last 3 years, in the age of AI, what people have come to expect, and I think what gets more value for people faster, is that we come in. Yes, we have beautiful technology. Yes, they can pick it up and build on it if they want to, and some still do. But we can come in and do pattern recognition and say, we've deployed this kind of solution at 100 different teams. I can tell you what works. I can tell you what doesn't work. I can tell you which parts I'm going to need to find out from you. And then we're going to map it out and we're going to run with that. Of course, we're going to be reactive and respond to things as they come up. But I can pretty much direct people about where we're going after spending a week or 2 with them. That has changed in the age of AI, I will say, because there are more places where you can make a misstep. The power of large language models is also its weakness, right? It is extraordinarily flexible. It's also extraordinarily good at looking like it's doing what it's meant to be doing. But you need to do a lot of work in the back end to make sure it is, and to make sure that we're deploying the technology safely, accurately, effectively. And so I think that's where tech companies are taking the lead and saying, we actually know how this works. Let me bring you on this journey.
Yeah. Oh, I love everything about that. I think you've hit a very important point about the power and the threats of, or the risks of AI.
Yes. Yeah.
You're spot on in that we are very quickly starting to see it's amazing. Oh, but it does it. And that can very quickly turn into, I see, I told you it can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the reality. I think we also have this really low tolerance for tech to make mistakes, but a very high tolerance for humans to make mistakes for some reason. And I think that is also going to change as we start really considering AI as another resource on the team, and it needs to be trained and taught. You have to have patience and iterate with it. So
and
let's shift
right?
It has to be supervised. The human in the loop is now cool. You used to kind of have to hide it. Having been around some of the earlier AI companies, had to kind of hide their humans, or they call it QA. It's only quality assurance. Like they'd have to come up with names for it, and it almost felt like prospective customers and competitors were busting them. Oh, they just have a bunch of lawyers. They have. I remember this because I was an advisor.
Yes, I remember.
I was an advisor, and I was like, yeah, but that's actually how you're getting something good.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a real weird tension. And I think what's nice is now. I think actually it was that same company. So my colleague at Law Geeks, he's like, yeah, human in the loop is now a feature. I was like,
that's cool.
Amazing. You're
like,
smart.
Look at Udia, right? That's like they're pitching themselves as software plus like a law firm to do all that work.
Right. Yeah. The whole AI first and then native, and we chatted about this a little bit. It's all still TBD of where it's going to go. It's certainly there's a need for it, the combo. What will be the uptake and all that is going to be super interesting. So let's shift to my favorite use case, which is directly and very much connected to workflows, contracting, and it's such it's the use case that also every corporate law department has. Everybody still struggles with contracts, no matter what. Tell me what you guys are seeing, and how did that make itself known as a use case to you right away, or did it over time? How did it come on your radar?
That's a great question. It was the first thing we built. What was really, I'm an ex-lawyer. I was a litigation attorney for a number of years. Then I worked in regulatory. So was my co-founder, Tom. And we knew how central the document was to the everyday workflow of a lawyer, no matter whether you're in-house or law firm or legal aid or whatever. So we knew how important this was. The thing that we hit on that I don't think we probably realized at the time how valuable this was going to be was there are a lot of documents that in-house departments need to generate that do not need to go into a CLM, right?
Yes.
CLM's incredibly powerful when you get them right, when the application is right. And please correct any of this. I know this is your bread and butter, but they can be incredibly powerful pieces of technology. They can also take a lot of time and money and energy to implement correctly. Our customers use our document automation, document generation features alongside their CLM.
Yeah.
Because they might have consent forms that they need to generate 10,000 times a year, or even people accessing their campus, right? For companies that have big headquarters and big campuses, documents around that. These are lower value, but higher volume documents that you would never put into your CLM, or if you did, it's going to cost you a lot of money to generate all of that. They build these light touch workflows that sit alongside the CLM or in their other systems on Josef, and they can stand them up sometimes in 20 minutes. That's how long it takes to build one of these things, depending on the number of variables. And so that is where we play in the space. It's very much like who we are at Josef. Again, the lower hanging fruit, the simple, repetitive workflows. And that's that's
okay. Let me tell you what I absolutely love about what you're saying. If you
and pick it apart. You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm always happy to, but I'm telling you honestly, like what I love is that you're going after the low hanging fruit unashamedly. Like you're not here to say I'm going to help you do your most complex, brilliant, legally blah blah blah. And we're going to outplace lawyers because we're that amazingly smart at the content. We're really good at letting you focus on the really smart stuff. You're like the least threatening AI type of solution that I feel like lawyers need to be real. It's like Outlook. You got to use email. You got to use email, right? And what you're saying is, yep. And you know what? Here's this other doohickey that for your annoying, high volume, repeat, noisy, the noise, that's what you're going after. And I love when a tech company can stay focused and be really good at what they set out to do and not get distracted by the things they can add on. So even when you said contracting, I love that you just clarified even for me, because we can't stay, it's impossible to stay on top of every moving piece in legal tech, of course, even in contracting right now. I love that you clarified this is your sweet spot. I love the whole coming on campuses, all those type of, they call them NDAs, but yeah, those like visiting little, confidentiality things that you have to either sign on an iPad or do whatever when you're coming in, or you want to send in advance because you're holding a big event. It's fantastic and absolutely should not be a part of a CLM system. So I think that is one of the big differentiators that we actually like to look for is tech companies that can articulate very clearly what they're very good at. And don't get distracted with the, and yes, we can also. Yeah, you need that? No problem. We got you. Sure, we could do that too. I think that's just, and there's no shortage of that low value repetitive work. I don't care. All my lawyer buddies, we got to get off our high horses and out of our ivory towers. We spend a ton of time on that kind of annoying stuff. And for those of us who aren't afraid of operationalizing ourselves out of a job, right? We want to get that stuff off of our desk. So
yes.
Yeah.
The good news as well, right, is what we see is not the good news for all the lawyers watching. Is we're not seeing, us building these tools and then them laying off all their contracts, admins or their lawyers, right? What we're seeing is that gives you access to data that then allows you to do more exciting, better, more well-informed, more strategic work, right? So if you take those Q&A tools that we were talking about before, we deploy these across the enterprise, right? Suddenly, you're not answering those questions, but you know what you're doing? You're doing more interesting work. You're jumping in and looking at unique questions that are coming in. Maybe you're tweaking it and making it better. You're also getting access to the data at the back end, which is split into topics. And you can see, we had all these questions about data breaches from here, or we had all these questions about bullying from over here, and we can go and be more proactive and better lawyers, and we can inform the C-suite, and we can go and do trainings rather than waiting for something to go wrong and then having the terrible task of trying to fix it. So there is a better world of lawyering waiting for us. It's just up to us whether we want to take that on.
What are you in marketing, Sam? It's amazing. Just a better world of lawyering. But the lawyering, everything you're saying, it's actually true data-driven decision making, which
Yes.
so many corporate legal teams are striving for.
Mhm.
But it's a big transformation from being that reactive, responsive provider of, firefighting. I'm here for you. Call me with any questions, anything you need, has been the mode we've all a lot of us have trained in and grew up in.
Totally. Me
And
too.
that's what we knew, because there was none of this kind of data. But to be able to, and over time, I think those of us who are operationally minded, right, the freaks who love process and efficiencies and all that, we kind of over time would do it organically or in a really painful way. Like, God, I've gotten like 7 questions from this team, the same question.
Yeah.
I think I need to go do a training for them.
Yeah.
And that's where I see that pattern shifting very much for those lawyers who like, all of those lawyers who would do that, they would go back to their internal, clients, but business partners is the better word,
Yeah.
and say, well, you guys have asked us the same thing from this org. Let's do a training session. Now they will get to that so much faster. It will be so much more pointed, and they could deploy this kind of like the training and that real deep partnership. It sounds like it's gonna be so much better when they have this kind of data. I used to be so thirsty for data, right? I was like, God, if I only could figure it out. I remember we would spend time going through our emails. Like our team would get together and be like, okay, guys, let's see. Can we count how many times? Like, because even to build FAQs, we're like, it's all very organic and anecdotal. And now you're making it actually empirical and objective.
Yes.
Right?
And I think that's exactly right. And I was trained in that model as well when I was a lawyer, right? An A-type personality like you. Like, I loved helping people and I loved doing a really good job, and I love people knowing that.
Yeah.
But you can still do that in a data-driven world. You can just do it more effectively and in a way that's more valuable for the business. So take that data breach example, right? Is it better for you to respond to the data breach after it's happened? Or is it more valuable for the business to identify that something might be happening, get in there, try and figure that out, and help people act compliantly?
Right.
I know which I choose when I was CEO.
So let me ask you this, just on that point of how we all love being that service provider and that trusted advice, come to me, I'm here for you.
Consigliere.
Yes. Attention I see in-house quite a bit, because you mentioned front door. And part of your workflows is like, hey, just come here, ask this thing, the chat, and you answer, and you don't ever have to talk to me. Is not always a positive pitch for some in-house lawyers. I mean, there's a lot of pushback on that. How do you guys find that? Because I could see a situation where a GC is coming to you going, I got to get this for my team, but then the team is like, I don't want a ticketing system.
Yes.
So what are you hearing on the ground?
There's a lot of pushback. I think, and I don't take it lightly. I think that there is a lot of value in there. But I think what if you dig in and if you listen, what you're hearing there is some work and there are some stakeholders who we need to deal with as, the consigliere, that traditional services model. That doesn't change. What you'll also hear, though, if you start to listen a little more, you send out surveys to your business, or you start to go and do interviews with people, which lawyers never do because they hate not controlling the situation. You'll also hear people in the business saying, I'm waiting a week for an answer to a simple question.
Oh, yeah.
I sent you an NDA for review, which is holding up M&A like investigation that I need to do that the CEO really cares about.
Right.
You'll also hear that. So that and I know that sounds scary and horrible for a lot of lawyers, but it is just the fact, right? And so these workflows, these legal front doors, they're not designed to put distance between you and the business. They're designed to get all of those problems under control so that you can do the work that needs to be done in the traditional services model at the level and at the standard that you expect. Because right now you're doing that work, but you're ignoring all this other stuff, or you're not doing it to an adequate level.
Yeah.
That's my response.
Again, I hope people are listening. So we've got about a minute left. Sam. I need you to give us the lowdown on, AI in your space, AI in legal tech, thoughts, fears, concerns, trends. What do you want us to know?
The number one thing that people need to be conscious of is, where do you insert AI in your workflow? AI is not a workflow. People are wasting so much time trying to make the entire thing AI or end-to-end agentic, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about it. Where is it going to be most effectively deployed? And the smartest operators in the space are operating it or injecting it at particular points in a workflow.
Okay.
Deterministic workflows, like, they will live on forever, or at least for the foreseeable future. And so don't get too caught up in AI end to end.
Okay, I love that. In the last few seconds, I thank you so much. I love everything you're
My
saying.
pleasure.
Also super applicable in the contracting space, since this is called Contracts and Coffee. That is exactly what we are preaching all the time. Find where AI is working, and it's working very well in certain aspects of the contracting lifecycle,
Yes.
but it doesn't have to be in all the contracting lifecycle pieces. So I think that squarely fits in also with our mantra. Thank you so much, Sam. I knew we'd run out of time. It's always so much to talk about.
So much to talk about.
But thank you, thank you, thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
until we meet again.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, everyone.